I am not after fresh Celtic deal. That's coming from Iheanacho. Flick warns Barca players ahead Atletico clash. And that's all we have on the Nigerian Tribune this morning. Victor, over to you.
Well, I've got quite a number of papers. The front page is actually with me this morning. And yes, I've got The Nation first and foremost right here with me. Stories say firm of ex-Southeast governors rally support for Tinubu. You find more of that on page 3. Trial of 500 terror suspects open in Abuja, one jailed for 10 years, and you find more of that on page 4, where we have this one on that same page 4. Zenith Bank posts 1.26 trillion naira profit before tax, and CBN to recapitalize Bank of Industry, Bank of Agriculture, DBN, and others. You find all of those stories on page 7. Now to some other stories. Edo, Nigeria strong to withstand shock and gains of war in Iran. Well, it says oil production now 1.84 barrels per day. Our position good, says CBN. ADC crisis, David Mark led NWC state chairman clash. And yes, pension assets eat 29.43 trillion in February. That's on page 9. Shekarau Yusuf in talks on page 5. We go for this commercial break before we go into stories from the Vanguard newspaper.
The gold standard of rice, the finale. High swelling index, non-sticky, no stones. Big Bull Gold, the gold standard of rice.
All right, thank you for sticking around. We'll have more stories on the Vanguard newspaper. Poverty remains high. 40% of children stunted in Nigeria. That's coming from the World Bank. And that's the reason, page 19 of the Vanguard newspaper this morning. PDP chieftain Benga Ashim resigns from party as reconciliation effort collapses. And that's the story on page 9 out there. On page 5, ADC crisis deepens as third faction emerges. There are more interesting stories right there. All right, let's flip to the Punch newspaper where doctors end strike, hospitals reopen on page 12. There's a bigger comprehensive story on that one. On page 9, oil shock, World Bank predicts 3.1 point inflation rise for Nigeria. 5 terrorists jailed. Federal government expedites 500 suspects trials, and you find more of that on page 13. 2027 battle, ADC crisis worsens as faction claims control. Mark-led ADC insists on convention. Aggrieved chieftains announce caretaker committee. On page 22, NCC orders telcos to compensate subscribers. Police arrest Lagos robbers, recover 14 guns on pages 4 and 5. On page 8, page 6, beg pardon, Tinubu's visit, Lagos announces partial road closures. And yes, we have the Guardian newspaper, beg pardon. And of course, this story is very interesting. Oil windfall, World Bank cautions federal government against profligacy. And on that same page 3, we have angry women out mass burial in Angwan Rokuba as death toll rises. CSOs decry worsening poverty despite over 100 trillion naira budget in 2 years, and you find more of that story on that same page 3. Middle East crisis exposes costly weakness in Nigeria's cloud economy, and that's a story that you might want to read on page 6. NAFDAC links hypertension, stroke epidemic, orders to salt intake, and yes, you might want to read up on what's on page 7 this morning on the Guardian newspaper. Bandits kill 6 in Bauchi community as groups raise alarm. And that's a story you'll find on page 30. NARD suspends planned strike as Shetima intervenes. Ogun doctors comply. And that's a story you find on page 5. Now to page 5 again. UN chief hinges Africa's food security on Dangote and global partnerships. That's an interesting one. ADC crisis deepens as new faction usurps party leadership and backs INEC. It's a story that you'll find on page 6. Now to page 5 again. National Police Day. Tinubu underscores intelligence gathering as IGP salutes fallen heroes. And chaos as rainstorm damages Abuja transport projects. As a story that you find on page 8. There are pictures of it out there, and yes, it's been trending. Well, that's as much as we can take right here this morning on the newspaper review segment. And of course, we'll come back after the short break for the weather reports. Well, welcome right here to the interview segment this morning. And we have something very important to talk about this morning, a very important conversation that we must have. Well, as Nigeria looks ahead to 2027, we know that the race is not just about the votes, it's about power, positioning, and political survival for some. And we have had different views, rather, from shifting alliances to high-profile defections. We have also seen internal party crises to those quiet backroom, negotiations happening in there. And the real contest looks like it has begun already inside some camps and, of course, within some circles. Well, of course, today we're asking a very important question. And, of course, we are talking about 2027 before the decision comes through. The topic for this conversation is power play ahead of the 2027 polls. And, yes, we have someone who knows all too well about this conversation to discuss with us right here this morning. This is Mr. Larry Aguro, Esquire, joining us this morning. He's a legal practitioner and a former member of the House of Reps. You're welcome this morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
What are your first thoughts on what is currently happening ahead of 2027?
They're part of political maneuvering and machinations. Just basically that, nothing more.
All right. So let's look at what has been shaping the drive towards the election. Let's look at the stories, the narratives that we've seen. First PDP, now ADC, talking about internal party crisis. We've seen APC and, the recruitment of the battalions now. All of the stories coming through, let's dissect them one by one and look at what exactly has shaped what we have seen so far and how the changes will look like just before the general elections come.
Yeah, generally, politics have not played within the confine of political parties. They are played when you think of power or you want to grab power, you don't limit yourself to your political parties. You look at the contenders, the contending parties too. What are their powers or what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses? And you begin to exploit that. But fortunately, well, one thing that is constant is that you have to look for their weaknesses for you to be able to what? To weaken them further so that you'll be able to gain the upper hand. Politics is about gaining the upper hand. And when they say it's a game of numbers, what do you mean? You want to take people to your side. And I've tried to define politics as something that you say what you cannot do or what you will not do. And it is not limited to Nigeria. It's a game or it's something that is played worldwide. And that is basically where we get the root of these maneuvering, these antics from. You don't have to say that you are a member of Party A and whatever activities you would engage in will be limited to the perimeter of that particular party. In trying to gain powers, you do all that is within the law, in quote, but in most cases, or in some cases, they are not within the law. I will give you an example. Around 1972, in America, Richard Nixon was the president. There's what everybody knows it as Watergate scandal. Watergate scandal is having to invade the enclave of another political party. He's a Republican, or he was a Republican, and he sent some 5 people to go and invade the political headquarters of the Democrats. Why did he not limit himself to that particular that is party, which is Republican? And that led to his resignation in 1974. If that one happened, even in the bastion of democracy that has been known for almost, it will be come July 4, 2026, this year, American democracy will be 200, or independence will be 250 years old. if such a thing happened in America, you now say it's not an aberration when it happens in Nigeria. You try to walk into your opponent's arena through surveillance or through any other means, gather information or data, see what useful use you can put those things you have gathered into so as to weaken them, for you either to gain power or to perpetuate or perpetrate yourself in what? In power.
Let's see how this current administration has been doing that in Nigeria currently, looking at the issues. It feels like the crises are deepening by the day in opposition parties. Let's talk about how, they've carried out this maneuvering in all the opposition parties.
It's an interesting game. People call it a game, people call it a vocation, and people call it a what? People see it in some other perspectives. But what is important is this. We have not tried to deepen democracy in Nigeria the way it is. And the fluidity of movement in political space or political sphere in Nigeria is such that it's very, very difficult to define. When you have water, you have oil. You try to mix them together. Both will go their different ways, but that is not so in Nigerian political sphere. They mix immediately. Hardly will you be able to decipher which one is water, which one is oil. And for science students,
how come it is mixing so easily like that?
It's because we have not, our politics is not founded on what they call ideology. Ideology guides your political belief.
Our politics or our political parties?
Our politics is not founded. It's when it is founded on that or grounded on that you now begin to say, okay, political parties that will be formed will now be able to take from this fountain. Politics is the fountain. And when it shoots up, it goes different ways. So whichever way it goes, this will be to the left, to the right, this is to the left. That is when the political parties will now pick the ideology from. But it is from the fountain. When the fountain is not bringing forth the ideology, what do you think will...
Let's look at it from the roots now. Let's go way back. At what point did our did politics in Nigeria, at what point did it become a do-or-die affair? At what point did the ideology of politics, become that we never made reference to those ideologies? At what point was it? But before you answer that question, we have a commercial break and we'll be right back. Please stay with us.
Tasty food is worth living for. Worried about your oil? Every time you enjoy your favorite meal? Introducing Smart Balance. Smart Balance Rice Bran Oil is rich in Gamma Original. Golden Terra Smart Balance Oil reduces bad cholesterol.
Super Malt Multivitamin Junior.
Still talking about politics, power play ahead of 2027 polls. And before we went on that break, we're talking about ideologies of politics. And I was asking, at what point did we miss it in Nigeria? At what point, let's go way back, let's trace it.
We never got it, I won't say right, with respect to ideology. Because when you look at the policies from the beginning, when the colonial masters were exiting, we were left with regional governments. It was only the West that had a kind of lean towards the left, which is socialism then. And we had the world was bipolar. It was either you lean to the west or you lean to the east, which is the west, the Europe and America, or the Soviet USSR, Union of Socialist Soviet Republic. That is what it was then. But unfortunately, we have always been what they call NAM, non-aligned movement. A little to the right, a little to the left. And that was why we remember, though it no longer, excuse me, it no longer exists. You have a unipolar world now, dominated by the West, particularly America, after the demise of USSR, that we now call Russia today. We were neither here nor there. And when we got to 1979, we had what they call, Okeawu was denied the power at the center because they thought it was moving towards socialism. That was when, because what were the socialist ideas that he professed then? He gave education to pre-primary education. Well, I think the registration was a little over 100,000 before he took over. The moment he took over, it rose to about almost 800 to 1 million people. And that was why the Western region had the advantage of education over and above the three other regions: the northern region, the eastern region, and the Midwest. Again, after that, subsequently thereafter, the thing collapsed, the military took over, and we got to 1979. We tried it again, and when the parties were formed they formed on the basis of those entrenched ideologies of socialism or capitalism? They were not. They were formed on the basis of welfareism. It was only the MPN of those days that was what we saw as conservative party. And when they say conservative, that is purely capitalism. But welfareism was what the UPN, the main opposition party, professed. There will be free education, there will be free healthcare, there will be free this. But when you look at the political manifestos must be grounded on ideologies. And that is ideology of welfareism. The middle course is welfareism. So the middle course was what actually happened. But subsequently thereafter, have we ever had political parties formed? Okay, we left that. Then when that collapsed, we had the two-party system of Babangida, the National Republican Party, NRC, and the Social Democratic Party, SDP, the White Horse and the what? And the White Eagle. So the military formed it. People of the same idea, people who share the same ideas and the same principles did not pull themselves together to form a party. If they do that, they form the party and they ask you to choose which one you want to belong. Of course, they said birds of the same plumage flock together. But in what sense? That is why I said the fluidity is somebody who was in labor, who, and you labor are just, the labor people are what? Are essentially pro-people, pro-masses. But you still find them in NRC, or you found them in NRC. These are things that they were not succinctly or distinctively delineated.
Would you say was that military influence, the waves of the military takeovers that we had in the country at different points that derailed our political agenda?
Definitely, yes. When you look at democratic experiment development or experimental development, you will say that when political party formation started, even in the United States of America, they had their first election in 1789. You had a Whig party. There was never a Democratic party or a Republican party at the inception. You have Whig Democrat, you have Republican Democrat, until it metamorphosed and it evolved into what you now have as majorly Republican Party and Democratic Party. Invariably, when in 1789 they had their first election, there was nothing like Democratic Party or Republican Party. It evolved over time. And as we are saying, there are more than 2 political parties in the United States of America. There are so many parties. But how many of them will make it to the national election? They have their own criteria set. If you meet their criteria, your name will be on the ballot in certain states or in some other states. That is what it is. So if you say it was the military incursion that actually derailed the evolution of political parties having ideology, it could be right. It will be 90% right. Because we look at the development in other climes too, and we have found out that they don't just evolve, they evolved over time.
Are we still evolving? And if yes, what exactly are you seeing about our evolution politically?
Yeah, we are. You know, like I'm from Yoruba ethnic nationality. And there's this popular saying that Rome was never built in a day. You have to grow. That even if a child is born today, he does not begin to crawl or begin to walk or run around the same day. No, you have to grow over time. If you had grown over time, it wouldn't have been like this. But because of the incursion of the military, and you know, what brings about what is democracy is the involvement of the legislature. The moment there's no legislature, there's no what? There is no democracy. And legislature, when you look at our constitutions, even with the development of constitutional developments over time, you find out that the addition of the legislature into our constitution makes democracy, and that is what gives power to the people. It is not the president that you elect or the governor that you elect. It is the legislators that you elect that gives you the power to say we are practicing democracy. And when the military took over, the first victim of that takeover used to be what? The legislature. They will not remove the executive because they are part of the executive. They will not remove the what? The judiciary because they have to maintain the judiciary. You know, we had Montesquieu in the, I think it was in the 18th century or thereabout, that propounded the theory of separation of powers and brought about the issue of executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. But you remove the legislature, you leave the two. So the legislature has now evolved over time to the extent that it should be the center of power of any democracy. If it is, look at the United Kingdom. You have the House of Commons, and you have the House of what? The other house, populated by the barons. That is the wealthy. The wealthy people are the ones. It's not for commoners, but House of Commons is for. That is why they call House of what? House of Commons is for commoners. What we are trying to say is that they have that thing, and over time too, they are the one that put democracy in check. In the United States, you have the Congress, equivalent of our National Assembly, also has two arms, like the House of Representatives and the Senate, and that is what we actually borrowed from. I won't say we copied from it, but we borrowed from it, and that is what we practice there. With legislature, if we allow it to grow the way it is, it has been allowed to grow in some other climate, we are likely to get it right, and ideologies will be formed. But because of that, the fluidity I said ab initio was such that you can leave a political party when you are not principled, in quotes now. It's about principle. Principle guides ideology. I've chosen to be a labor man. Labor people are not known to be wealthy. They are not known to be wealthy.
And based on this, what you said now, the principles, looking at what we've seen in our political structure in Nigeria today and the gale of defections we've been seeing, are we going to say the defections are happening based on the principles or based on what the people perceive, what the politicians perceive as not, aligning with the principles of the party initially?
I said that, manifestos are built on ideologies. And when manifestos are built, you already know that if Party A comes based on the manifesto, guided by the ideology of that party, if it comes to power, this is basically what they are going to do. Recall when Thatcher was at the helm of affairs, Margaret Thatcher in United Kingdom, they used to serve them milk, and there was subsidy on milk. But unfortunately, she got there, said, "Found, we'll take the subsidy away." And people, that is for conservative. You already know what they are going to do. I'll give you an example in the United States of America too. The Democratic Party people are known to encourage all sorts of things. Abortion. Democratic Party will encourage that, and that has been their focus. They are the ones that have been promoting gay, lesbianism, homosexualism, LGBT, all those things, queer things. But the Republicans are known to be pro-life. Whether it is or whether it is true or not is another thing. So when they get there, these are things we are talking about. You already know when these people come to power, they will do this. I see what this man has been doing. People will follow them based on what you have chosen to what? That what is there in your manifesto, founded or on the foundation of ideology. So when you don't have that, so you are free to move. You are a conservative today, a progressive tomorrow in Nigeria. And that is why I talk about fluidity and the mixture of water and oil. That is what it is. You hardly differentiate or distinguish which is water, which is oil in Nigeria. So you move in and you begin to practice because you are not the principle or the conviction of that manifesto. It's not there. What is there is the greediness and the propensity to always be in power, to always be relevant. They call them AGIP, or government in power. As long as I find myself and I find for myself a role to play in any government, even if it is sweeper's party, I do not mind. Let me just get there as long as a role will be assigned to me. So it's a point or it's a question, sorry. It's a question of not allowing your mouth to cool. So you need to chew every now and then. That's why I say greediness. You must be chewing at every time because what is there for you is to go and park. That is what. So, and you don't have respite. When you are greedy, there's no respite. You just have to continue parking. So that is the relevance we seek. It's because you want to be relevant at all times. And you don't, once you are defeated, you won't want to go back to the drawing board to go and what? To go and see where you are falling and to go appeal to people. Okay. You just at all time be relevant.
All right, the conversation continues from those points. We'll be asking him about the power of incumbency and the influence it wields, but we have to go for this commercial break. And when we return, there's a lot to unpack right here in this conversation.
No put your ideas, make we talk. Time don't reach to rearrange his house to give us small wisdom. Shots might be fresh now, but you know, I beg no be so. Before I go talk, say our smile no reach. Make not think I'm twice so. Ever heard of Colgate, the #1 oral care brand in the world?
Colgate Maximum Cavity Protection unlocks 24 hours cavity defense. The formula boost with calcium for lifelong smiles.
Mom, it's a time to brush. No more for my cover mouth.
Colgate for 24 hours maximum cavity protection.
When malaria knocks you down, you can be sure parasites are having a party in your system.
Welcome to our new kingdom, guys.
Comel, an effective weapon against malaria. Attacking the parasite army directly to give you express relief and get you back on your feet effectively. Comel on. Malaria gone.
Some say learning is fun. But as a mom, I see how demanding it can be for my child. That's why I ensure he starts every day with a cup of Bonvita. Bonvita, Prepare them to win every day.
Ní ìgbà kan rí, ilẹ̀ kan wà tí kò ní adùn mọ́. Oúnjẹ ti pàdánù adùn rẹ̀, kò sì sí ohun tí a lè tún fi gbádùn mọ́. Ní ìgbà náà ni Taste Maker yọdé láti dá adùn padà sí ilẹ̀ àìládùn yìí. Gbogbo ohun tí ó ṣe ni ó wọ́n, ó rò ó sì bù ú. Láti ìgbà náà lọ, wọ́n mọ òtítọ́ kan. Gbogbo ohun tí wọ́n nílò ni wíwọ́n, rírò àti bíbù.
Taste Maker.
All right, thank you very much for sticking around with us on this conversation. Power play ahead of the 2027 polls. We still have Mr. Larry Agorod, Esquire, right here with us, a legal practitioner and a former member of the House of Reps. And yes, from what he said the last time, I was going on to the power of incumbency, the influence it wields, and the questions surrounding it. You know, you mentioned the AGIP, yeah, AGIP. And of course, the addiction to chewing at all times and all of that. So let's talk about the power of incumbency and what it has done to our democracy.
The power of incumbency scheme relatively works because anybody in power, any party in power controls the apparatus of coercion. And what are those apparatuses of coercion? They are the armed forces and the police and all other institutions of the government that could arrest, prosecute, and even subject people to holding them in custody. That is what we have chosen to use those ones for in Nigeria. But ordinary power of incumbency, that is being in power. What do you use it to do? In Nigeria too, anybody that is in power has access to a lot of money. A lot of money. And money plays a very huge factor in getting people to support, in getting people mobilized. And that is why, generally, I don't want to talk as a politician. I want to talk as an activist now. They will say they have pauperized the people by using money, by poverty, as a means of suppression. Invariably, they democratized poverty. And once you democratize poverty, that leads us to what happened in USSR when Joseph Stalin, was in charge. It was said during the winter, cold winter, bitter and biting winter like that. It was said to have gathered some people together, and he took a fowl. In the presence of everybody, he plucked the plumage, the feather, when it was cold, and he dropped it. When there was no feather, like my brother putting on a very thick dress, the feather was the dress of that fowl. And he took corn, dry corn, and started dropping. You know, in spite of the fact that the cold was biting the fowl started following the thing. I'll give you an example. That is how people are. You make them hungry. You subject them to suppression, but you give them little thing. They will still
But does
follow
it mean
you.
the eyes of our people are not open to this?
If it happened some years back, I'm talking of more than 70 years ago, and you're asking me your people. What is your people?
I'm talking of currently Nigerians.
So
I mean, you're not the first person that will talk about
that is what it is. The world is built to look like that, not only in Nigeria. I'm talking of USSR. The largest country in the world in terms of size, with almost 16 million square kilometers or thereabout, if not 17 million square kilometers. So I'm talking of that. Even in the United States of America, the boasting of what? Of democracy worldwide. It happens. That is why you have MAGA, make our country great again. And the candidate promised them that he will be president of peace. And in his first year, he conducted 626 or 27 airstrikes in 8 countries of the world. And he told them that I will be president of peace. There will not be war, all ongoing wars, I will stop it. And he has started war, and you are telling me your people here. What is your people here? Compared to those people who have everything, in quotes now, of life. If they give you an opportunity that you want to go, you will choose America over Nigeria. And that is happening there in America. And you are thinking of your people here.
All right, let's come back to...
I don't know, I'm not here to defeat you, but I'm here to explain certain
we will
things.
we will still talk about this, but linking this to the Nigerian politics now, and of course, Nigerians, talking of 2027 election, how we have perceived or how we are taking this election as Nigerians. But before we talk about the electorates now, let's look at the power of incumbency and what has been happening in the political sphere in Nigeria. Looking at, before you go ahead, sir, we are seeing the hold the incumbency is having in the political sphere. Talking of 33 governors out of 36 in a particular political party. What are they looking for in just one party? Is that the way it's supposed to be? Is there a reason why they are moving, to the ruling, current ruling party? What exactly does the incumbency have in this old drama?
No, I think I did explain that. Maybe you still want me to either expatiate or elucidate. I told you incumbency or any government in power at the federal level, even at the level of the state, controls the apparatuses of force, of coercion, which is the police, and all other institutions that could hold people to account or for accountability. You think of somebody, because Nigeria is such a country, you are talking of the governors now, they have been giving so much money, they are not accounting for. Governors are giving so much money, the money of their state. And like I did say, are they accounting for it? No. So somebody somewhere has an institution that has been put in place to look at the way to check the corrupt excesses or corruptive tendencies of those people in power. And they have found out that you as a governor, you have been giving money, you have packed the money. Somebody somebody will be instigated, or even the instigated, somebody writes a petition against such a person, and they told you this is the money. The agency of the government is coming to look at you, and they open the books for you. Of course, you have actually committed this error. I'll give you an example. If you want, I don't want to go by way of analogy. You recall, there was a governor in Delta State who contested as vice presidential candidate to Raki Atiku. It was said when he was chosen as the deputy or vice presidential candidate. So I've used the state to borrow as much as well over 120 billion naira from the bank. And the money was not spent on any infrastructural development of the state. It was found out that the money was spent in executing the campaign of 2023. Of course, his party lost. He left government. They had to open the book for him. Look, did you do this? We have the records. So all of a sudden, he surrendered and he joined vice presidential candidate in 2023. He's not a member of the opposition, the ruling party now. The person that took over, his successor in office, whom he unilaterally installed, the way your guy is going, you have to go. So he has also left. Oboroweri of that. Which party is he? He came on the platform of what? Or PDP. He's now in APC. invariably, what they are saying is that, and when I told you the ruling party controls the apparatuses of what? Of coercion. It's not as if they are coercing. You have also done something. You have played into their hands.
So when we see all this happening,
let me just land. Maybe no question will arise again. You have played into their hands, and they have what it takes to make you pay for it. And somebody there in that APC had said, no matter the quantum or the magnitude of your offense, once you join us, you will be forgiven and you will sin no more. So what explanation do you now want? And these other governors have sinned sincerely. They know they have sinned. They have committed these sins by packing people's money for no cause at all. And somebody wants to check you by way of accountability, no transparency anyway. And you find out that the moment you join the league of Alibabas, did you read the book? Alibabas and the 40 Thieves. So you are also a member of the 40 Thieves now. So what else? What is left? They won't look you as a what? As a thief. You are being cleansed of your what? Of your sins or crime. So you are now party member. So it's a crime. It's a party of the what? Of criminals. One way at that level. That is why people who have committed sins will always join them, because once you join them, like they say, if you cannot beat them, you join them. So you have to join them. So when we say coercion now, maybe I'll go for that. Those who join, because of the instability or what they have done by way of crime, by way of not being accountable to for the funds that have come their way. 2, by way of saying the dynamics, the ruling party use all other institutions of what? Of government. You are thinking of judiciary. The ruling party, one way or the, it happens in America too, At the level of Supreme Court, I'm coming back to Nigeria. At the level of their Supreme Court, they will tell you democratically appointed, Democratic Party appointed Supreme Court justices. Republican Party appointed Supreme Court justices. So, and when issues like that crop up, like issue of on abortion, those appointed by the Democrat will say yes, there should be abortion. Those appointed by the Republican will say no, there should not be abortion. That means the judiciary itself is not what? It's not independent there. It is based on who gives you the lifeline. You are appointed as what? You are here on somebody's building. That is what it is in Nigeria too. So judiciary is nowhere in any way in the world that what? That independent. In Nigeria, the same thing. So if you have committed crime, you believe I'm in power and I can influence things, what do? You will not have your way. Even at that level, you will join the trade. That is another one. 3 is the issue of, you look at INEC, the way we manipulate. That means Independent National Electoral Commission, the way you manipulate it, that you manipulate the National Assembly. That is why it is not right for any nation to be amending electoral laws every year of the election. You didn't get anything right. I mean, you people are not, you are just dumps.
So you invariably, think it was a wrong move?
It is. It is. You commit an error to accommodate me. So you must amend it to be able to what? To strengthen my stay. That is why you do it every year. Are you saying, I agree with you, the criminals are always ahead of the law. That's why you amend laws. But not this way. Are we saying you have not gotten anything right? You recall
how should it have been done, and when should the amendments?
No, you say when there is always a necessity. But when you look at those amendments, that means on yearly basis we will never get things wrong. We will be getting it wrong, and that we have always got it wrong. That is what you are telling us. Because you don't have the spirit to accommodate, to say, yes, elections are won and lost. Because there could be some level of manipulation, but to what extent? Nothing is outrightly right anywhere.
What do you think is wrong with that electoral at 2026? What exactly is wrong with it?
Which one? The one they amended?
The one they amended, yes.
They put some things there. They say like...
I mean, no, you just frowned against it.
No,
it shouldn't have been.
No, I don't. The point is this. When you amend your laws at any election cycle, it shows you are not getting things right. Why? Because you don't have the spirit to accommodate. The spirit of, excuse me, victory and loss. Okay, you are victorious, I've lost out, but I will go to court. That's where the courts or the tribunals are always populated. That's some fundamental things. If your name is left out of the what? The ballot, you can go to, go to the tribunal, fine. But it's on the basis of rigging, manipulation, not returning mutilation of results. These are issues. Or there's this popular in the manufacture or they change things. These are issues when you go to court, you won't be able to prove. And the court has said, come, if you complain of a unit, you must bring your agent in that unit to give evidence in court. But you just pile everything together, you say, these are manipulated results from units, you don't produce. We ought to have known these days that it will not succeed. You don't need any electoral law amendment to get us to where we are going. And because we are not sincere, the people in power will also want to perpetuate themselves in power. And that is what has brought about not the litigation, the changes that we are witnessing. The courts, of course, the courts will give some rulings or some judgments that will occasion the amendment of the act. But if we have that spirit, you have won, maybe 60%, that was, they call it substantive, or no, substantial compliance. Substantial, not 100% compliance. When they say substantial, that means you have complied substantially with the law. It does not have to be 100%. If I know you have, and the Constitution is so clear, you want to be governor, and you have 20 states in your what? Or 21 states in your, let me say 24 states in your state. Win 20%, 25% of two-third number of local governments. Once that is compliance, substantial compliance, you don't have to go to court, and you must have won the majority of vote, and you must have also complied with that section of the Constitution. So be it. And that is what we are talking about. But on the basis of that, people just, okay, let us go to court. Let me now say, we go to court. We are politicians now. On this note, I want to speak like a politician. We go to court just because we don't want our followers to be downcast immediately after the loss of the election. You will need to raise their hope. Don't worry. She stole our mandate. We will reclaim it at the tribunal. I know fully well that no, there's no way. But for my supporters not to have lost hope totally at that point in time, and once they have lost hope at that point in time, you have lost them to the other party, to the party that has won. So you go to tribunal. On the basis of that, you should also learn. It's not for the politicians, but for the followers too, or the party followers or the party supporters to also learn that victory has been achieved, but provided it complies substantially with the provisions of the law, whether Constitution or the Electoral Act.
All right, now let's look at the other parties. What is happening inside those parties? Do we call it rebuilding? Do we call it preparations ahead of 2027? Or do we just say it is internal crisis that we are seeing? First PDP, we saw Labour Party, and now we are seeing ADC.
See, like it is founded on what I said, relevance, chewing all the time, and human greediness. And our society is the problem. Our society celebrates greediness as success. Any society that does that, let me repeat, any society that celebrates greediness as success, this is where they end up. By the time I get into government and I've sufficiently packed some money, I'll be going, by the time you also leave the studio to go and see Larry going. How many cars is going with? What type of car he goes out with? He's putting on green dress today, he's having green Range Rover. And green what? Green shoe. And you also tell me like a lady and a green cap to match. No, so that is, you see it as success. And that is greediness that we celebrate as success. In the political parties, we have not deepened democracy. In the sense that everybody that holds power will want to control everything in that political party. And let me hazard a guess, as they say, that is what is going to collapse this particular republic. I know this is a national or international television forum. This is because if you go this way, if you look at what the question has raised, look at Labour Party. Labour Party is meant for workers, if that is the essence of Labour Party. It started when somebody who was an employer of Labour went to that party to be a candidate. What kind of aberration? Do they work together? An employer, an employee. They are always at that gastron. But an employer goes to or went to the party of the employee to go and become the boss. Does he want to tell us he feels the same way the laborers feel? No! That is why I said fluidity. I started by saying fluidity. That is an aberration that is not supposed to have what? To have occurred. Does he put on kaki every now and then? Does he put on salubata? The rubber...
It felt like in 2023 we saw an agreement. We saw a force of the Labour Party, like you're saying, like you're mentioning, until after they lost the election and everyone, we started seeing crises in the party.
Labour Party worldwide are built from the sweat of the laborers, workers. Contribute 10, contribute 5, 1. When you see billions coming in, which worker has billion? Or else they have stolen money. And that was led to that crisis. It was decimated into 3 factions, or fractionalized into 3. Usman Enadi, Abure, and Akpakpa. Have they been able to resolve their issues? They have gone to court severally. And when you see a labor leader sporting a wristwatch of almost 10-15 million naira, is this supposed to be a labor leader? Did he buy that thing through his salary? Of how much? We need to speak up to all this. That is why I said collapse. There is no ideology. Talk less of his collapse. And given the votes the Labour Party garnered in 2023, about 6.2 or 6.3 million. The ruling party saw it as a what? As a challenge. Then it must be destabilized. But it has to come from within. And that is why I said I'm a Yoruba person. They said in Yoruba, if an outsider just walks into your household and begins to punch you the pot you used to cook pomo or ogunfe in your house. So yesterday you used this pot to cook ogunfe. What it's telling you is that there's somebody inside who has gone out to tell the outsider that if you walk into our kitchen, the first or the second pot is the one we used to cook ogufe. That must be an insider. So you use an insider to destabilize the party. Because of greediness, it was paid for. And like I said in another, early this morning, at a forum, I told him, said, when there's no, Yoruba will say, when there's no crack on the wall, lizard will not what? Will not walk in there and turn that place, the crack into an abode.
But look, looking at what we have now, it looks like...
We have not moved to ADC and some other things.
We are just talking about Labour Party. But I want us to look at all these opposition parties. As you started with Labour Party, look at NNPP now, yes, Kokonso, defection, and the deepening PDP crisis that we've seen. It's been rocking the party for a long time now, and it feels like, there's still no settlement. And of course, ADC, just this morning we saw in the papers, that ADC crisis deepens as new caretaker leadership emerges. Let's look at all these parties, which is supposed to be a formidable force against the ruling party ahead of 2027. But so many crises rocking this party. What exactly, can they all come together? Is there a possibility? Is there also a possibility that these issues can be resolved before election 2027?
I think I had said all I needed to say by saying that greediness is the foundation of our instability, political instability in Nigeria. And that informs the fluidity that we have witnessed, that you'll be able to cross from whatever party, no matter your background, into another party, even when your backgrounds are at variance with each other. Kano used to be the seat of PRP, People Redemption Party, and they call it Party of the Talakawas. During the Second Republic, that party won 2 states, Kaduna and Kano, and that party was headed by Aminu Kano. Aminu Kano was the leader of NEPU, Northern Element Progressive Union, in the 60s, First Republic. NEPU. You have heard of NEPU before? NEPU is Northern Element Progressive Union. They call them Talakawas, the party of Talakawas. So when you are talking of Talakawas, it's equivalent of saying the oi polloi, the masses, just like the labor. You will have expected the person of Kwankwanso with Kwankwansia, which is another doctrine, I won't say ideology, a doctrine towards Talakawas, to have joined what? Hands with the super rich. That is the fluidity I'm talking about. So you allow, because you are in power and the game is, if you understand the game very well, what you do is, and it's part of the game anyway, like Yoruba will say, biting is part of fight. Pinching is also part of what? Part of fight. You go out to say, see the way he was nailing me. You were fighting already. So machinations, maneuvering, engaging antics are also part of what? Political practice in worldwide. I've given you an example. The Watergate scandal in 1972, that's what they call Iran contra whatever affairs. It was the sales of arms to Iran. This is Iran, by United States of America, when they were fighting Iran, and they sold it to Contra. That is another. It was an organization in Nicaragua also. I think Nicaragua. Through Nicaragua, Iran will now buy American arms. Those are the machinations embedded in politics, and it always comes sometimes during the moving close to election year. What we are witnessing too here now is as a result of diverting the minds of the people away from the failure of the government in power. So when you see all these machinations in Nigeria, diverting your mind away from the failure of the government, you now try to what? Destabilize the party so that you have an easy passage. It's not as if you have done well, but you need, first and foremost, to distract the attention away, the attention of the people away from what they ought to be what? To be minding. And they should be minding your failure, your incompetence, on your kakistocratic tendencies in governance. So you divert their way, they will now face politics, and they will be minding their business. You will continue. Then you look at that division. How do I win? Elections are not won on the on the election day. They are not won. It is what you have prepared. Destabilize them. Don't let them come together. And that was what won the ruling party the election in 2023. You have two other serious contenders. And when you add, Obi was formerly in PDP before he went to Labour. He had 6.2. Atiku, the candidate of PDP, had 6.8. The one that won only had 8.2 million. So if Atiku and Obi had worked together, that would have given them conveniently 13 million votes. But if you are talking of synergy, they could have even gotten close to 18 million.
Yeah.
You understand? We are talking arithmetic now. So if the ruling party saw it that way, what will not make them to come together is what it will work towards. And that is why the instability in all other political parties don't allow them to come together. They come together, you are finished. So what do? Destabilize them. So, and it is that you are witnessing right now. And I've told you it is part and parcel of political machination.
You just talked about synergy. Now, looking at 2027 and what we have in front of us now, which units or which group of people do you think, if they come together, they can stand as a formidable force against the ruling party ahead of 2027?
You know, you already saw it now. Before the instability that has erupted again, you already saw it that, okay, Atiku was in the political party. Amechi was also there, left his party, the ruling party, to join them there. All of a sudden, Obi left Labour and joined them there. And before you say Jack Robinson, Kwankwaso has also come with his Kwankwaseya followers. If all of them had come together in one political party and they had agreed on who should be the what? The flag bearer, the ruling party would have known that it's already packing its loads from Asok Villa back to wherever they all come from, different places of Nigeria. But I told you, elections are not won that way. They have seen it that way, beyond what we also saw or what we have said. Then destabilize them. So they will be thinking of, okay, Obi will be thinking of, they might not likely give him the ticket in ADC. With Kwankwaso, we can move to another party. If Atiku refuses to go with them, the same thing that happened in what? 2023 will be replicated. So they all need to come back together because they were together in PDP before the advent of Buhari in 2015. They have been defeating Buhari now. They defeated Buhari more than 3 times before Buhari came and defeated them because they were dispersed. That was what they call political dispersal. Some went away to the right, to the left, to the front, to the center. But if they had converged on the spot, they would still have defeated. They said this is that convergence that prevented this ruling party from getting power or gaining power that this ruling party does not want again. Continue to disperse them. But they have not come because of the grade. You see yourself as a formidable candidate. I also see myself as a formidable candidate. I'm right, I'm okay. Because of my age, I'll be 80 or thereabout. I'm already 81 or 82. I have the large chance. I've been contesting in the last 5 elections. He is also there. He has only contested once, but Amici has not contested before. Kwankwaso had contested once in 2023. Who should bear the cat? Who should be the one to take this thing? If you come together, I'm aging, concede it to me, you will not. I have followers, committed followers who are the obedient base, who are committed, and they are making us, in spite of the fact that the 6.2 million or 6.3 million votes that he got was religiously biased issue. And you understand, does he still think he has that base again? These are issues that you will need to analyze, come together. But if they had come together and they are conceded to whosoever they concede to, they will have what? They will have been able to give the ruling party a run for the victory that is coming during the 2027. But with what has happened now, they have studied them. What they do, the little, my knowledge of agric is disperse. You have to, whether through explosive.
But is there still hope?
Let's look at ADC. ADC was said to have settled when they took it over. I think everybody was said to have been, some people were said to have been settled. Okay, just take it. And some people were said, okay, you have your tenure, run out your tenure at the state level. We thought it was a good thing, or they thought it was a good thing. But all of a sudden, see what is coming up again. The presidential candidate on 2023 is now the one who has come up again. When the other one, Bala Nephew, said he was the vice chairman contesting the chairmanship with David Mark, so many things. You now begin to see what is actually happening. What is actually happening? That is the issue of instability I told you of. They will never, with the way things are going, they may never have a platform to contest because they are in court. When will the court determine their case? Though there is a rule, 180 days, 60 days, 60 days. But if, peradventure, the 60 days is beyond what they ought to have done, because INEC said all register members register must be uploaded come May 10, and the case or the cases are not decided before then. Do you know the political party you belong? Which party? And you have the resources to contest. You have to look for what? Another platform. Which platform is now available to you? They said there are about 17 or 18 political platforms. You will now begin to build all over again. You see, they have been building this in the last 1 year. But in the meantime, let me volunteer this. That as a Yoruba that I am, I don't know whether you are a Yoruba, but a Yoruba that I am, even at the level of APC, when something is cold, but you, Gen Z will say chill. That is chill. But in Yoruba, when it's very, very cold, you know, I'm speaking English now, very, very cold. It is only cold there. It is not very, very cold too at APC. That will be an implosion. Very soon too.
At the APC level.
Yes.
All right, let's talk about something.
So because
no, before we talk about something different, I want the implosion. Yes.
Whatever goes around comes.
The
around.
implosion you're talking about, is it going to come before the election or after the election? And what would cause? Because of course we are seeing so many high and mighty in politics defecting to APC. Now, is it going to be also a matter of an issue of greed, power play, or just misunderstanding based on the structure in the party?
On the basis of our political evolution, greed is it, and it is all over. It is the common denominator. Whether you are party chicken, or party fowl, or party turkey, the common denominator, the common basis, the foundation is what? Is greed. That is one. And where it leads to, you don't turn me to a political Nostradamus that will say it is going to happen tomorrow. But I said very soon. Very, very soon.
Very soon. All right. I was going to have us look at this analysis from a different angle. That's the angle of the machinations that you spoke about earlier on. We're talking about religious divide, ethnicity. We're talking about the youth-centric voting bloc as well. The Labour Party in 2023 enjoyed that youth-centric voting bloc.
And religious too.
And, a lot of people are still asking the question, is it a Muslim ticket? Is it this, is it that, is Yoruba, Onwulukan, is it this, is it that? These are things that are still in existence. How do we address this ahead of the 2027 elections? What should we really know? I think that's what I'm trying to bring out here. What should we really know about all this political maneuvering and everything?
You see, if you have to go into that, three things have been controlling Nigeria. If it is not religion, it's going to be ethnicity. If it is not that, it is North-South divide. North-South divide. Those three things combined together will operate either together or differently at different times. You look at 2023, you recall yes, Papa, that was religious. That was what actually gave him or added to the 6.2 or 6.3 million votes there. Is it going to happen this time? Because one, the Muslims were saying yes. In this Muslim ticket thing, it was the Christian that benefited the more, not even the Muslims. And the fears of the Christians were, will be what? Will be dominated, will be Islamized.
How do they benefit?
Okay, look at the list of appointments. You will see what I'm saying there. So because I'm a Muslim, so I know what they say in the Islamic circle. Just look. How many ministers come from the Southwest? How many of them are Muslim? Ask now. Just go. From Ogun State, how many of them are Muslim? There are about 4 or 5 of them from Ogun State. The one that comes from Ondo, is he a Muslim? Ekiti. So we know what we are saying. So just take it like that. What about the North too? Or the South-South or the Southeast? So other appointments, they have come out to say, yes, that is why I'm talking to what I didn't go there. If he had not asked that question, I wouldn't have. The people in the North are already saying that it is the Muslim thing. It's a scam, yes. It's a scam. They are not going to buy into it again. They are already preaching that they have not benefited. They have not in any way benefited. So the Muslims, the Christian fear have not dominated. And you recall there was this Northern Christian Association of Nigeria. They made a release. And they said their fears have been addressed. They thought they would be dominated. They have not been dominated. Invariably, they are speaking to what I'm telling you, that they have benefited. They did not just state it categorically the way I've stated it. So religious plays a very vital role when it comes to determination of what to lead to. And you see, the Yorubas are saying, yes, for the very first time, I don't want to go into some issues, that we have a Yoruba in power. For the very first time, I say, at the federal level. I know your mind will be running riot. But it is said for the very first time. For the very first time.
According to the Yoruba.
It's some Yorubas. I'm not one of them.
Yorubas.
I'm not one of those Yorubas. Whatever they say, for the very first time, they have a Yoruba in what? In power. So what we are saying is that...
So before you go on, because, it's not just my mind. It's not just a mind. There are people out there who are wondering, there was a Yoruba man in power before.
So, I know. But I said for the very first time, some Yorubas are saying they are very...
Why is that?
Why that? It's not for me to... You want to go to court? They will take your establishment to court. I said some Yorubas are saying that We leave that as it is. Would the Yorubas, being a very well-informed and sophisticated in quote, would they still vote for the pains the nation is currently undergoing? Those as I was at a...
Well, it's not a tribe or an ethnic
No,
issue.
you ask a question. Yes,
Okay.
and you say it is. It is because the 5 governors there said when Atiku from their party got the ticket, what they told us was it was from the north. We see them as Hausas, Fulani, Hausa Fulani. That Buhari was an Hausa Fulani man. Why would Atiku, another Hausa Fulani, take over? Immediately after him, they have done their 8 years. If you want this nation to what? To continue to exist, let it come down south. And you say it's not a what? It's not an ethnic.
No,
It is.
I'm talking about, you mentioned what we are currently facing.
No, I'm
that
talking.
people
No,
would
no,
not
no.
want to
I'm
vote
going. I'm
for.
talking. So yes, he said, would they? People are already saying with Hausa Fulani, we were buying 180 naira per liter. But with Yoruba in power, we are now buying for how much? Because they said this money is going to be 1,800, 1,900. So the fuel is to be 1,300, 400. That's what we are saying. Will still they vote for that? It's not, but that is what it is. They will say, like Yoruba will say, if you remember the Belos that is dead, you should also remember, if you remember Belo that is dead, it's because the Belos that are presently alive are not what? Are not doing well. Tabaranti Belo Toku ni Osheun. So the Belos that are here, that are alive, are not doing well. So if you begin to remember what Buhari did, it's because the present president is
You're
what...
throwing a soft shade anyways, because I am a Bello.
Sorry. Maybe you are not doing well because you are alive. So
I mean, we are doing well. We are doing well.
Your progenitors have done well, have done better than you. That is what we... So invariably, that is the adage in Yoruba anyway. So we are saying that would they? Those are things that come together to say that what would 2027 look like. And that is what also inform instability in the other party. Destabilize them so that whatever we'll be able to garner, we'll garner it, and we'll still emerge victorious.
Let me bring you back as we begin to wrap up on this segment this morning. What will 2027 look like? What should we be expecting from the political sphere, outlook, from INEC, and also the electorate? What should we be expecting in 2027?
Only God knows anyway. But on 3 fronts that you have asked, yes, INEC is trying to be independent. There are some things INEC is doing that you think is politically motivated. No. Like the issue of revalidation of voters' card. They said for those who had collected their voters' cards from 2011 to 2019, you cannot tell me that we all are alive, all of us that did collect our voters' card then, or that did register. So with the revalidation, what it tells you is that, okay, whosoever has not revalidated means that person is what? Is gone. And his name ought to be removed from the what? From the register. That is decongesting the register. And that is, but at whatever point it comes to existence, people will still read politics to it. That is INEC. 2, would INEC be independent? The word just exists in dictionary, and you can read the meaning up. But when it comes to practice, would he ever be independent? Like they say, he who pays the piper dictates the tune. That settles that INEC. With resort to electorate, I've told you, they have pauperized the electorate and they have democratized poverty. So invariably, whosoever offers any money, one way or the other, people will still vote for them. But it's not vote buying. I've tried to debunk that. We call it mobilization because people belong to parties. Their parties will share money I'm on the field, though.
When you say mobilization, we have seen evidence, we've seen videos, we've heard people come out to say, we're given this amount and we were told to vote for this candidate. Does that also amount to a mobilization fee?
That is, I try to do, because I'm going to be a professor on that. Why? Because parties are mobilized and party members are mobilized. The electorates are also waiting for that mobilization. But when on the election day, and this is the polling unit, I come here to stand and I ask you, do you have card? If you vote for us, this is what? This 5,000. This is 10,000. This is 20,000. That is vote buying. But when we move into your houses on the eve of the election, how many people are here? We are 5 in the studio. This is our household. Tomorrow, this is for your transport. It could be 20,000. It could be 5,000. It could be 2,000. That is mobilization. Before the election, serious, get it right. Electorate are waiting for it. On the day of election, they will sit on in their corridor. Your agents know. They will ask them. We have not seen Agoro people. You come to my house, they say, we didn't see your people, they didn't come to our house. And they are party members. They are already waiting for that mobilization.
But when you use the term, because I really honestly will not agree that it's
you may not agree because you are not a politician.
But when you use the term mobilization fee,
you are not a politician, you will not understand.
Yes, I'm not
agree.
a politician. But when you use the word mobilization fee, does that also influence the decision?
No, I said the electorate are expecting it. I'm not saying you are buying. Your electorate, you are one. I'm telling you. So I'm talking. No, listen. Let us be fair to ourselves. I said I'm now talking as a politician. This I've said, and a resident electoral commissioner called in one day, I think in your studio or somewhere, say, yes, what Agoro is saying is right. Your electorate are already expecting it. It is different from going to the polling unit to stay by the polling unit to say, this is 10,000, or put 10,000 here, put key there, or the God of thunder, the iron. So if you take it, iron will, if you don't vote for us, thunder will strike you. No, that is not the issue. But when it comes to mobilization, that is why they say election is what? Involves huge sum of money. The electorate, I'm telling you, because I've contested several times, so I know what I'm saying. You should now buy it from my own side of the view.
Okay. You don't get my... Victor, I know.
Let's talk about entitlement of electorate, so
yes.
that and accountability when those who they have voted for get into office on the final notes now.
The point is this. There are things you need to understand. As a legislator, don't expect me. I'm elected to go and do 3 things. That is where we got it wrong. We got it wrong in Nigeria. When you expect a legislator to bring dividend of democracy, he was never elected to do that. Best it right. 3 things. What are those 3 things? I've always been propagating that. Representation. When he stands on the floor of the house to say, my name is Lanre Agoro, I represent the people of BCOS. That is representation. 2, oversight. They do what they call budget appropriation. They have appropriated 10 million naira for the purchase of satellite or OBS, outpost, whatever, broadcasting, whatever you call it. We'll come here and inspect. Have they bought it? As your management bought it, that is oversight. The 3rd one is lawmaking. You want to make law, I sit down on the floor of the house, we now make law. Those are the 3 functions of what? Of a legislator. But beyond that now, and I go there, I do not bring borehole. After 4 years, I go, oh, look, borehole, borehole, come on, Komua. So everybody now goes there, struggle for what? For borehole, struggle for this, struggle for that, negating or neglecting all those 3 proper
processes. There's no proper education on.
No, that is their belief. That is what we have turned into politics into.
All right, thank you very much for the conversation this morning, Mr. Lanre Agoro, Esquire, who is a legal practitioner and yes, a former member of the House of Reps. So yes, representation on the conversation, probably ahead of 2027 polls out here. So yes, it's been a swell conversation, and I hope that you have gained a lot of lessons rather, and you're blessed with a lot of things and information, especially ahead of the 2027 elections. So yes, we want to say a big thank you on behalf of the entire AM120 production crew.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we'll go on a break now. When we return, it's going to be the sports segment where Toby Ajewale is waiting to give us more details.